call the meeting to order at 12:31. Is that what you got there?
Yep.
All right. And start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Slightly out of order. The last meeting that we did not use the mics, I got some complaints about that because on the phone recording, it's not coming through. I'm sure we're recording and everything is fine, but if somebody watches that, it's not so much that we can't hear it. People that are hard of hearing are struggling with it there. So as much of a kind of a trouble as it is, I think we're going to have to try and maintain using them. So, being a work session, you feel like being the secretary over there, Mr. Monet?
Oh, of course.
Okay, we won't need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll
make that motion.
Okay, I'll second it, you're it.
Yeah.
So, why don't you do a roll call, we'll start there.
All those in favor?
Sure, we're in favor.
Aye. Aye.
Do we need the protocol motion on the work session?
You can't hurt.
No.
There you go.
All right, so roll call. Supervisor Bertrand.
I'm here, sir.
Trustee Detmer.
Here.
Trustee Monet here. Trustee Clerk Pern is absent. And do we know?
10 minutes out, maybe?
Yeah, Treasurer Hott should be here shortly, so we will address that at that time. So he's excused for the next 10 minutes or so. Okay.
Sorry, that was relevant to this. I had to read that. Okay, so in the agenda for additions and deletions, I don't have any additions, but I do want to switch the order of the agenda. The issue with the budget, that is long, lengthy, and complicated. I'd like to switch the budget to the end of the meeting, which would put it after the proposed hiring of Bruce Adzigian, and put it there after that, because that's going to go on for a while, and some people may not want to sit through it all. So to be sure, we have a motion to move that from the beginning of the agenda to the end of the agenda.
I hope we do that.
I'll second.
Okay. Now, do we have a motion then to accept the agenda as modified?
I make a motion.
And I can say.
Yes, I'll second.
Okay. So taking the discussion on the budget and putting it to the end leaves us with revised ordinance, and again, this is a work session. We're not going to make a whole lot of huge decisions. We're going to talk about things. Number one would then be revised ordinance 59B, Lyon Township, Oakwood Cemetery Ordinance. Some backstory on this. 7, 8 days ago, I got a call from somebody who wanted to, someone had passed away downstate and wanted to bring the body up here and store it in the cemetery. Well, needless to say, that's the first time I'd ever heard anything like that. Started checking around, tried to accommodate them, and it turns out that in the chapel, there is a back room in the chapel where you can store caskets. Proceeded along to having it plowed out, again, trying to accommodate them. They have a plot here in this cemetery, so it was a matter of being placed next to his wife, I believe. Then got a hold of our legal counsel to make sure that everything was okay there, and ran into a hornet's nest of liability issues. And after about 4 hours of different questions on the liabilities, it came down to just had to pull the plug on the thing. There are too many possible things that could go wrong that were not built into our current ordinance. And the ordinance that was there had actually been either rescinded or repealed, I'm not sure which, but was not in effect. So we couldn't do anything quick, but at the same time, in talking with funeral homes and other places, to store a body is, over winter is like $5,000. In keeping with, of course, we're looking at the budget, you know, is there a way to make money on this and accommodate people? So there was a possibility of revisiting that ordinance and trying to, excuse the pun, bring it back to life. It is something we can talk about. I can supply you with the information over the next few days. And the second item is also related to that as far as the corpse winter storage rates for the cemetery. So it's not about like putting a sign up saying, well, you know, we'll store dead bodies. It's about people who have plots here and trying to accommodate them and put them in a position where they're not having to pay exorbitant rates from their funeral home. And it also somewhat coincides with the fact that there's certainly been discussion about plowing that cemetery year round. Lots of people go in and out of there, lots of people get stuck. It's not making a lot of sense to me personally that people can't have some sort of an access, even if the narrow lanes are done with a small tractor snow blower or something. So all of that kind of fits together. I would just throw it out there for you guys as to what you think about this. We can revise it. We can get back in there and change it the way that we would like it. It would probably cost us $500 in legal fees to have them draft something that's rock solid. And they brought up very good points. What about natural disasters? What about a tree falls on it? Different things like that. But the one horror story that really backed me off before I pulled the plug was apparently a body had been stored in there either too long or not properly embalmed. And I had covered that we need a certificate of properly embalmed. And that didn't go well when they opened the door in the spring. And the funeral home director said, you do know what goes on there? And I said, I'm not really sure. He said, that's MRSA, that flesh-eating bacteria. He says, that gets going, it's just going to melt. Well, that was the end of it for me, right there. So we can revisit it and look at it, and what do you guys think about that? As a possibility as far as a discussion now, to move forward and keep checking into it.
I think it'd be good to look into it, mostly for the fact that show some compassion for people who've lost a loved one and be able to have it close to where it's going to be laid to rest. Perhaps save our township people some money that they're doing it, but also doing it in a safe way that we don't cause any harm to our residents of the township. So I think it's worthwhile looking into. I think just on the compassionate aspect of looking out for our residents and people who have plots, and losing somebody is a horrible thing. And if we could make it easier on them and make it good for the residents of Lyon, then I'm in favor of looking at it.
Thank you, Trustee Detmer. I know you're busy writing. Okay.
Yeah, I've had a conversation recently with someone about this. I don't have a problem with it at all. I want to make sure that not only are the people taken care of properly, their loved ones, but obviously the liability is a huge thing. At the end of the day, from what I've heard from prior experiences, I think through legal or not, there have to be some safeguards in place that if someone's loved one, friend, or otherwise is not properly taken care of in spring, I would hope that there's something in writing that, I don't know if it's a good faith fund, a charitable fund, or otherwise, the township step up or something to take care of it, because the idea of what I heard is if the family wouldn't want to step up, someone needs to be responsible legally to take care of this and spiritually from that perspective, make sure that this person's taken care of properly. So as long as that stuff is in line with everything that we could do as a township, then I don't have a big issue with it.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Monet. I think the general opinion then would be that we could continue to do some research on this and at least check with the attorney and see what the fee would be to lock it down to where they're comfortable in protecting us. And possibility of having it come up as a product that could be, we can do a motion on at the board meeting next week. So that being said, are there any other comments on it? I think we will move that to potentially be a motion next week and do some work on it over the next couple of days. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is these are all submissions for an appointment to positions that we would, as a board, next week vote on. But I'm putting them out there today so that people have an understanding of who they are and what positions we're looking at. The first one would be Fred Cooper, who was a retired fire chief. He was actually in the running for the supervisor job when Julie Tatro first backed away from it, and they ended up with Larry Maduri. Certainly qualified, was on a national board for grant writing. That got my attention. Retired fire chief, I believe Sterling Heights. But he would be willing to work and work hard, he's retired, on both the Parks and Rec Committee and the Planning Commission, with the intention that, at least from our discussions, his grant writing experience would be fabulous, and he has been on other boards and done civil duty stuff all his life. This is the first of many. I will get a short synopsis of his resume and the others to the board members, probably by Friday, if not Monday, except Monday we're closed. In either case, to all the other board members so that they can look at it before we make a decision as to whether to bring them on in these positions or not. So that was the first one.
I'm going to interject here real quick and make sure that Treasurer Hobbs is recognized. He's in attendance now.
So look like him?
Treasurer Hobbs?
Use your mics. We had complaints about not using them.
My apologies for being late.
Here?
Here.
Okay, the next one is Roger Tagmeyer to the Planning Commission as a veterans representative. When we ran, one of the things we ran on is that the veterans should have a better voice in this township. And the AMVETS is recommending him as the very best and brightest that they can supply, and he is willing. Also would get a short version of a resume to give out to all the other board members here before we actually vote on anything, to bring him on at next week's board meeting. The third one is Steve Reedy, who has graciously offered to serve on the Park and Rec Board and has experience in regards to the booking of the bands that they had last year, and he's also a local realtor. Probably many of you people know him anyway. Stand-up guy, willing to serve. That's a good thing. Again, a short resume would be in order before we vote. Let me back up a little bit. I should have stopped at each one. Any discussion at this meeting about Fred Cooper? If not, is there any discussion about Roger Tagmeyer at this meeting?
I don't know so much of a discussion as much as it is a comment, and I want to clarify for everyone too that it was brought to my attention, and I don't believe that there's any jurisdictional order or what's it called, impropriety or otherwise. But it was brought to my attention the possibility of non-full-time residents being appointed to committees, and I want to make sure that we clarify that it is within the authority of the board, whether or not they can be full-time residents, don't have to be full-time residents, but I think it's worth discussing because it was brought to my attention.
As far as discussion, it's my understanding that if they have a residence here, they can serve on the board. Residents in Lyon Township. If you're seeing that differently, say so, and we can check into it further.
Well, I just want to make sure, a second home, does that qualify as a residence? Do they have to be homesteaded here, I guess would be a better way, just so we get clarification. Because like I said, it was brought to my attention, so I think it's worth checking out to make sure that there isn't a jurisdictional authority issue or otherwise. If they're not, I don't believe so, nothing I found, but then again, I'm not an attorney, so I just think to make sure we cover our bases.
I can certainly ask. The explanation I'm going on was a couple of months ago was if they pay taxes here and they have a residence here. But I can certainly clarify that or attempt to clarify it. Okay, any discussion on Steve Reedy at this meeting? Okay, we'll move on to Joe Israel to the Board of Appeals. There has been some discussion about this already that we may handle it a little differently. So I would ask for board comments now if we would want to look at a different situation rather than looking at a resume and then making a decision there.
I'll chime in. I would like to sit down with this Joe Israel and actually talk to him about a few things that have gone on in the past. I don't know him, and I'm not gonna vote for somebody that I'm hearing different things about, so I definitely want to sit down with him before any decisions made on voting him on a board.
That is certainly an appropriate statement. One possibility would be that on the 19th, that is our board meeting day. If he was available to come in prior to the board meeting, the issue starts to become if it's an Open Meeting Act violation unless we're interviewing him as a candidate, and it's not really a candidate, it's an appointment. So I'm not sure about that part, though he could certainly come in and talk to two of us if two people wanted more questions. I know him, you don't, so granted you would maybe want to talk to him. I could reach out to him and see when he's available if you and somebody else wanted to talk to him, but that would keep us out of Open Meeting Act problems.
Yeah, like I said, I definitely want to talk to him, before I have any type of input with him. That's my take on it, and I'll sit down with anybody, one other person from the board as well.
Okay. Mr. Detmer, were you gonna add something there? Oh, your battery's probably going dead. Well, let me get a hold of him and see what's possible, because in the sense of two of us, I mean, we're here every day during the week, so maybe he could, that's a little easier than trying to nail something down and talk to the whole board when we're not doing an official posting and hiring process where we have the ability to appoint without a posting and hiring process. All right, let me see what I can find out about his availability. Any other discussion on that? Is there another way that we might handle this that somebody else might have an idea on? Okay, I'll see about the availability of meeting with two of us. The next person is Ken Cook. To the Planning Commission, this was a referral from somebody else. He's a retired businessman, and I can say that he is not, this would be to be on the Planning Commission. He has a lot of great ideas. And it's not like we're trying to go into the Planning Commission with a set number of people with the same ideas. We want to get some different people in there. Very experienced, outspoken. I think he'll be a good fit. But again, I'd like to get a short version of a resume from him and make sure that the board can all look at that first. So would there be any discussion on Ken Cook at this meeting?
Yeah, all I'd like to say is that any of these people, I think the more we know about them, I feel the better. The more that the public knows about them, I think the better. And the more, because I've never heard of Ken Cook, so I would personally like to see, not that I can make decisions on who's the best qualified all the time, but I definitely think it's in the interest of the board and the community to get some information out there about who these people are, what they are, resume, whatever.
Sounds good to me. This is part of this, the reason this is happening is because we need to fill these positions in order to move forward. I think I started out with a pool of about 25 people. Obviously, a big consideration is, are they willing to serve? Anybody who's willing to serve, we should be looking at. So I will get the whatever kind of a resume I can from him based on initial discussions. Plus, Ken is actually coming down here Friday. If you want to come here and meet him, or if anybody else wanted to talk to him, but I'd get his resume and figure out what I can do to pass that information on to you guys before we make a final decision at next week's board meeting.
So if we're having problems filling these positions, should we post it for everyone?
We've had this discussion privately. We as a board, when we come in here, you have the right to set the table as you see fit with people who will help you further your agenda. You and I have talked about this. I've talked with everybody individually. The general consensus individually was to not do that. Now, if you're suggesting that we post something now, we can certainly consider it, but it is not mandated that we post it, because if you post, you're doing a public hiring process, and that delays everything a lot farther.
Yeah, my point was just if we can't fill it with certain selected people, then let's open it up for everybody else to get this. We have to get these positions filled.
Well, let's see where we're at. I'm not disagreeing with you. It's a different process, though. This is a quicker one, and we have the right to do it this way. Let's see, if this were, if we go through this and pan out, I think we are, actually part of it is in the next item on here. I think we got it. There's a couple minor things yet. Good point, though. The next is a discussion on expanding the Planning Commission from 5 to 7 people. I'm putting this on there because as I talk to these people, when I find qualified people who have a real good background and a real good resume, I don't see any reason that we shouldn't try and recruit them to work for Lyon Township. If it turned out that the Planning Commission went from 5 to 7, I think we could probably pass a resolution or an ordinance to do it. Mr. Monet probably knows more in depth on that. I personally, well, I'm bringing it up here because what do you, as board members, feel about that? If the one in question is, I still have a correspondence with a lady who lives in Garish Township. The way that I see the rules, we can appoint one person to the Planning Commission that does not live in the township, and I suspect that's intended to bring in an expert if you need be, and certainly that's not the worst idea in the world. The person I'm talking to is an absolute expert in canvassing. He worked for major school systems And you know how it is when you're dealing with talking to parents and trying to get ideas and trying to get involvement. She would be fabulous, but she lives in Garish. So kind of holding out on one position to hear from her, but we could end up with 6 or 7 really quality people. So what do you guys think about possibly expanding that from a 5-member planning commission to a 7?
Has anybody talked to the existing planning commission and then found out if they want extra people or if it would be a good idea or a bad idea?
I have not. The only person who's left is Ken, Mr. Monet. Can you help me with his last name on the planning commission? Is it Ken Richardson? Dan Richardson. I talked with him, and he is willing to continue serving. Ron Azenda has not replied to me yet. I will make one more stab at that. Mr. Monet is the liaison from the board. The rest of it's pretty wide open right now. They have either resigned officially or unofficially. No, I have not yet talked to Dan about that. I did discuss at length how, for our planning commission in particular, I would like it to focus, and we as a board can certainly decide to be way more involved in grant writing. We need money. We need money from anywhere we can get it. There's millages are not going to be popular. There's no more ARPA money flying around out there. And the previous board, we're going through the budget right now. The previous board actually asked for 0 in grant money last year. I don't even know how that happened. I don't care. But we need to change it, and we need to get good at finding money. That would be one aspect for the planning commission. Another would be canvassing residents, to be good at that. There are issues with zoning changes that come up occasionally. Try and get them in get a planning commission that's definitely doing some things that can benefit us rather than waiting every 3 months for the mandatory 4 meetings a year. At least those are my thoughts initially on it.
So with the scope of expanding the planning commission from 5 to 7, because we've already met the statutory requirement of having 5, we're good there. Would it be to fulfill other duties that you would see necessary for the township, get more input, more opinions, more hands in the pot? What ultimately would be your idea and purpose for bringing it to 7?
All of what you just said. More minds, more opinions, more expertise. Well thought out, well-rounded people can handle meetings. Several of these people have already been on other boards in their communities. Yeah, all of the above.
I do remember, I believe, reading in statute, I think there's a reason why it's at 5 and or 7, so you don't have any of these ties. So if memory serves me correct, if we're gonna shoot for expanding the planning commission over 5, it should not sit at 6.
Right.
It has to go to 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know. I mean, it all hinges on if we end up with more than 5. I don't know that I see a reason to say no to a bright-minded new blood in this township, preferably younger like you, Mr. Monet, not old like the rest of us. We're trying to set the table for the future here. I don't know how long I'll be here or any of us will be here.
Was there a veterans representative for the last board? I never remember hearing of that.
No, not at all.
Okay, I didn't think so. So we'd be bringing in more aspects of the community, I'm assuming,
Yes.
as well?
Yes.
Make it more diverse?
Yes, great word. Diverse and inclusive. Which is a good point, because if we really looked and beat the bushes, we'd find other organizations that might want to be represented, but veterans for sure. All right. So is there any other discussion today on the possibility of expanding the planning commission from 5 to 7? Okay, we will see how it goes with the resumes and the final contacts with the people and bring it to the board meeting next week and see where things end up. Certainly not going to be able to you know, if we don't fill them all next week, that's fine. We just need to be making some steady progress here.
I do want to bring up one more point, please.
Go right ahead, sir.
A couple of these people I do know of, the suggestions, Parks and Rec, Planning Commission, or otherwise. So I guess it just dawned on me, well, it did before maybe. How would someone who was only up here a few times a year take on making sure concerts through Parks and Rec or other activities would be able to get that implemented in a timely manner if they're not here?
What I did not mention and I have talked with people, it's time that we moved into a Zoom category or something similar that we can use. Markey Township has offered that we could use their Zoom room for nothing. In respect to the fact that the Planning Commission is only mandated 4 meetings, I think, could be 6. I don't see a reason that, similar to what Garish is doing with Susan Seemack. She's in Florida, but attending the meetings and giving input when needed. I think we should at least consider moving in a direction where that's an allowable thing and not to preclude that somebody can't be it. Again, based on, I'll check, but based on the fact that they have a residence here and they pay taxes.
Agree. I was just thinking when it comes to like Parks and Recs, when they do concerts and they set up things and there's activities, I don't know how you do that via Zoom, I guess.
No, a meeting, no, I'm talking planning. The Parks and Rec, the people that aren't here so far are, at the worst, a snowbird, but they live here all the rest of the time. Steve Reedy's a year-round resident. Another person who's not on here is Lyon Wisniewski, who you may or may not know. But they're on a 6-week travel around the country thing. This is the lady, her and Matt are running the South Park State Store, but they live in Lyon. Solid people, smart, know a lot about business, obviously. Yeah, solid questions. Some of these meetings, I think it can be done by Zoom. If it calls for physical presence and they're not here, I guess that would be a problem, and whether we would decide as a board to actually bring them on. So far, I don't think we have anybody who's not at least here 9 months out of the year. And good point. Glad it's a work session. Okay, any other discussion on that? We went through it again with the 5 to 7 on the Planning Commission. Anything else that we want to talk about today? Okay. The next, I put it on here for contact the committee for the Winterfest. I did a little bit of this, and I wish JC was around today. I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand why we were not given posters, why we were not given the stuff to promote this. I went to the cross-country ski shop because they are somewhat of a liaison. They told me the same thing. I don't know what's going on. They don't give us anything. We got badges to sell. They don't give us any promotional material. In a 2-day span, I went from trying to get a hold of them. If you go on the only way to contact the committee who's running it out of Roscommon is to get on their Facebook site and sign up for it personally. I'm not doing that. Why should it be that hard to get information on the Winterfest? There's more information coming out of Grayling and Holton Lake on the Winterfest. In any case, it's on here because I was thinking, you know, maybe we got away, and then I tried, and I'm kind of over with it. Obviously, the pancake breakfast that the fire department puts on, I'll be there to help in some way, shape, or form, and anybody else who can, that would be greatly appreciated. I honestly do not know what else is going on. Any of you here got any comments about this or any ideas on what we might be able to do, pull a rabbit out of a hat here?
Well, I don't know about this year, but moving forward, as it's been explained to me by Linda at Good Times, in all the years she's been there, and the store is just shy of 100 years, all the years Winterfest, they have never, Chamber of Commerce has never approached her once to sell badges, give out promotional materials, an agenda. I mean, not one single word. And I think as a township, we should try to change this. I mean, it's Winterfest, it's here. Well, even if it's run through the Chamber of Commerce, I mean, one would think the community it's where it's being hosted would be much more involved than it ever has been, and it's not. And I have no idea. I just know there's a pancake breakfast and a boxcar race because Linda's gonna help sponsor the kids for that. But other than that, if that wasn't just by chance, no one came to her for sponsorships or otherwise, and I'm thinking to myself, well, there's not a lot of businesses up there, but there may be people, persons, entity, or business who might want to sponsor, and how come they're not included? So I think we need to work on that, definitely for next year. This year, I think it's it's this weekend. What do you do? So.
Good points. It occurred to me last week that people have been filing in and out of here paying taxes every day, and we don't have a sign one out there. I stuck a sign on there today. I mean, it's too late. This should have all started a month ago. Maybe we'll get better at it next year, but you're right, we're probably gonna have to take the initiative. Just as a question, has anybody seen, there's no poster at Good Times. Has anybody seen one anywhere else in Lyon Township?
I haven't seen one anywhere.
Yeah, I don't go in Garish often enough to know if I go in somewhere and see it, but. All right, well, being what it is this coming weekend, so yay. Certainly, let's try and support our fire department for putting on the pancake breakfast. I think that's a great thing. Okay, next on the agenda, I guess we will not be moving Winterfest into the board meeting. We're going to have to get smarter next year. So the next thing on the agenda is the proposed hiring of Bruce Adzigian as a sexton and a grounds maintenance. And I do have his resume. This is something that we talked about as a board a couple of weeks ago with the initial concept that we needed to hire somebody to be a part-time ordnance officer and sexton. As things have progressed, it turned into where, at least at this point in time, from my perspective, and of course we have to vote on this moving forward, that a better fit for him might be to do the sexton. He lives on the other side of the cemetery. To be the sexton, and then we talk about, we need a groundskeeper. Somebody who's kind of taking care of this building, this lawn set up here, not necessarily doing all the repairs as JC is doing, but to cut the grass, keep an eye on things, let the board know when something's not well, like I know we have boards on the outside that are rotting on the bottom, place needs painting, not necessarily to do the work, but to let us know what's going on, give us a list, and then we can arrange to have some of the work done. In that capacity, he would serve, again, at 12 to 15 hours a week, and the rate, as stated before, was $15 an hour. On top of that, because it's winter, there's not a lot of that going on. We need some serious help as far as records, and I think that it's possible to bring him on and then under other duties as assigned, which we can tag to the hiring, to have him start working for Greg or with Greg and Timothy to get into that records room, which is still a nagging problem here. So as of today, that would be the proposition that we could move into the board meeting and make a final decision on hiring him. He has a lot of credentials and a long work history. We, at least 3 of us know him, if not 4. And now that you have his resume, I will check that off as being that you are prepared to make a decision on this next week, or will be. Is there any discussion on it today?
Yes, I know him from the store. He's a very nice gentleman. I will say with conversations with him, the only thing that I would ask of this board, if we move forward with appointing him, is that we give and make sure he has the extended, if you will, computer training necessary to be sexton, to go into files and everything else, because even I'm a little bit limited, and he expressed that as well. So I think with some training on that level, he would be just fine.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was one of the discussions we had as far as the training could be available to do the sexton, and the sexton job is not that bad when you're looking at the files and what you're keeping track of. The ordnance officer, that would have been a little more challenging. I suspect he's up to it. But the fact is, we actually, the ground maintenance and the records room, we kind of need that right now. And records room or anything around here as other duties as assigned we can work with. And, you know, we got another 2 months of winter before anybody's going outside and doing a whole lot of anything. So that is not completely. Is there any other discussion on this proposed hiring of Bruce? Okay, we will move that as a motion into the board meeting next week. The board members here have a sing-along that goes with the agenda.
Excuse me, point of information, we bypassed the chicken ordinance.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
We bypassed the chicken ordinance, item 8.
I thought we talked about it. Did I go right by it?
Yeah.
Oh, I did. I skipped it. I got mad about the Winterfest. Went right over it. All right, the chicken ordinance. Yeah. As far as my limited knowledge on this, I've had a couple people ask. Of course, the price of eggs is going up, and it was on 9 and 10 news a couple days ago, and it doesn't look like there's any easing of it for up to a year, maybe. There's certainly been suggestions of expanding it, bringing a chicken ordinance into Lyon Township. I would pass over any discussion about it to other members here who are a little bit more knowledgeable about what this might be. We do not have a final version, but again, if we decide as a board, we can pretty much nail it down in the next couple days and have it ready as a motion by the board meeting.
When Julie was supervisor, she passed a chicken ordinance.
No, I found material where somebody tried to get one.
That was me.
Okay. Tried to get one passed, a lot of material, actually.
That was a huge bunch of material.
Yeah, and I passed that on, I believe, to Mr. Detmer.
It's handled under the zoning. They're farm animals, because there was already issues in the past where people had chickens and they had to get rid of them.
Mr. Detmer, would you like to speak on this a little bit, or?
I've talked to quite a few people who have asked that want to have chickens in the township. I did some research on it, and there's a lot of cities, Traverse City, East Lansing, big cities that all have chicken ordinances and allow a certain amount of chickens and stuff like that. They don't allow free ranching, they don't allow roosters, things like that. But there's no reason at all why we couldn't incorporate a chicken ordinance and attach it to our animal ordinance that we have already. It would take minimal effort. The addition that I'm looking at to put on the ordinance is just about identical to the Traverse City ordinance, and it has some good rules there. It has, keeping them penned up, keeping them away from other residents and things like that. And I think it's a good ordinance, and I'd like to see this go forward with it.
My understanding, because I looked once quite a while ago, was that you could have up to 6 birds in a cage as long as they stayed caged. Was it 6?
I think it's 8 on the ordinance that we have here.
Okay, so we got 4, we got 6, we got 8.
Yeah, it says 8 on the updated thing. I think the reason, if you're going to keep, from the research that I've done, chickens operate well on a minimum of 10 square feet. If you took a 10 by 10 dog kennel and if you took a 10 by 10 dog kennel and you put the chickens in there, you could probably put 10 in there.
Never mind, sorry, you're good.
So,
Okay, so we got some varying numbers. What, you wanna add something to this?
This woman here, Kathy Ray, knows more about chickens, has been doing it for 3 years. She's the one that drove this before and got turned down. Can answer all your questions. Instead of guessing and saying, oh, I thought and I heard, and she knows it all.
Well, what I'm saying is, we are only in the talking stage, so being stupid at this point is okay.
No, that's fine, but she's good.
But I mean, if we get closer, go ahead.
Any question you have, she can answer.
That's great. Would you be willing to talk with Trustee Monet or any of us about, as we're going through the next day or two, changes?
Absolutely. That's,
Okay.
I mean, that's why I'm here.
Trustee Monet,
Detmer.
Trustee Detmer.
Excuse
Yeah,
me,
I
are you
have-
friends with Chrissy Packer? Okay, I wanted to make sure, because I know her as well. I know who you are.
I'm not doing this for me because my chickens are in a good place and I have a lot of them. But there's a lot of people in this community that need to have some chickens if they want them. And so I wanna lend my expertise in this area.
That's great. That's great. My only concern when we first heard about this is that if they're in a cage and there's no rooster, I don't personally have a problem with it.
Even a rooster, it's so funny because mine they don't get up until like 8 o'clock in the morning when I let them out. You won't hear them crowing, you won't hear them doing anything. And then when it's dark, they're out. I'll go out in the evening and I'll hear birds and I'll hear dogs, I'm hearing snowmobiles and everything else. I don't hear my chickens, they're asleep. They're quiet.
I can appreciate the comment, but I also have a feeling that if a rooster was crowing, we'd be hearing about it. But anyway, we're talking residential area, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Doesn't the cage, if you're there in a cage, defeat the whole cage-free purpose?
Well, there's a difference between having them in a cage and having them this is a picture of my run and mine, and they have, like, it's winter, they don't like going out so much. They have a huge area that they can play in and hang out in, and they're not confined to a little cage where they don't get to move.
So can I get your name for the record, please? I'm sorry.
Kathy Ray, Kathie.
That's right, it was the KRC. Thank you.
Kathy, if you'd be willing to have some conversation, Mr. Detmer, are you willing to continue talking about this? I think maybe we got a match made in heaven for some chickens here. My 2 cents today would be 6, but if the number, if a different number comes up, that's fine.
You need to have a minimum of 6. They're community animals. They need friends. So,
Don't we all? Well, don't most of us.
yeah.
Okay, well, how about Jeanette back there knows both of you. She's trying to hide and not say anything. But she might be an excellent liaison, because if we develop one, she's going to be the one typing it up and working on it. So maybe the 3 of you could, today's Wednesday, maybe by tomorrow have at least a brief discussion to start something, and maybe we can pull it off before next week, Wednesday, for the board meeting. Maybe.
Yes.
Start the process anyway.
And I'd just like to add, I'm no expert, I haven't raised chickens since I was a kid with my granddad on his farm, but it was brought to my attention, so you guys can discuss it, and then it can be brought to us that people were concerned about if something was put forth, the smell. I don't know, I haven't been around chickens in years, I will let you speak to them about it, just want to throw it out there.
Yeah, I have water quality, environmental quality, noise quality, the whole gamut. I have all the information on all of that.
Sounds good, because I only have one smell topic per week in the cemetery. Burn that right out of me, so. Yeah, if you guys can come up with something, and quick, we can probably do something about it by Wednesday as far as a final vote on it. Well, further discussion and a vote. But it could be in a format where it's pretty much done and we're just voting on it. Okay, so anything else I skipped in there? Okay. I'm gonna jump out of the protocol here for a minute, as if I don't quite often anyway. The rest of the meeting is strictly about the budget. This is some long, boring stuff. I don't know, I don't want a situation to be here where you would like to make a comment to the board, but you have to sit through another hour of board meeting stuff on the budget. So as the four board members here, what do you think about we open it up to public comment for anything that's happened so far? And then get into the budget. And if people want to stay here for that, great. And maybe in this occasion, we could have an additional public comment at the end of that. But it's going to be a while. Anybody got an opinion or a discussion on doing that?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor of having a board or a public comment right now, signify by saying aye.
Yay.
Aye. Okay, well then let's have a board comment session right now, and then we will move on from there. I'm sorry, public. I've been to 3 meetings in a row in 30 hours. I'm a little fried. Anyway, if anybody in the public has a comment about anything we've said so far or anything in general, come on up and say it. Easy. Didn't we just
I've
do
been up
that,
too
Garris?
long.
You can't fall here.
You guys got me out of bed way too early today.
Okay.
I'm messing up. The veterans representative, there's never really, I don't think, been a veterans representative per se on the planning commission or other committees, but there has been multiple members consistently on those committees that are veterans, so it's not like there's not been any veteran presence. It's just not, anything's been made of it.
I'm sorry, for the record, name and.
Oh, sorry, Brian Cook, Lyon Township. On your full-time versus part-time residents, as far as boards and committees, the HLUA, has had that discussion. We've had issues with it. Primarily, you get too many board members that go to Florida during the winter and you can't get nothing done. And we have meetings every month, depending on your committee. So what we did is we said, hey, if you go to Florida in the winter, no. And you also have to agree to attend all 12 meetings. Now, that's not something that the utility authority controls. That's been done by the townships. But it's worked out very well because that way we've got at least 3 or 4 members. We now have a 5-member board, so it should be much less of an issue than with a 4-member board. But, there's good and bad with it, but you can make it work. Your chicken ordinance will have to follow all the same requirements that any ordinance follows. So I don't think you can do anything at your next meeting as far as approving one. There's a whole process that's got to go through. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I would agree with you that if it was 12 meetings a year, part-time wouldn't make it. As far as I know right now, none of this is in that position, and if Zoom takes the place, if Zoom can be done for one of them in the winter, then we can look at it and decide.
We do have one board member that does not live here. They live downstate, but they are up here a lot, so.
Was that a mandate from somewhere that only one who didn't live here could be there?
There's no mandate. It was just a discussion in the 2 township boards. Actually more of Lyon, because Beaver Creek's always appointed people that were here full-time. But on the Lyon side, it was like, okay, we're not gonna seek out those that aren't gonna be here and can't commit to being at all the meetings.
Yeah, the one from out of the township on the planning commission came from our attorney. along with other information about the other board members, or the other committees. We'll see. I'll certainly ask again and try and double down on the clarification for it, and good input as always from you, buddy.
I would just like to state as well, thank you, yeah, because if we're looking at a chicken ordinance amending or otherwise, you're absolutely right. That'll be dictated by the Zoning Enabling Act and all the processes set forth in hearings, publication, notification, all of that. So, yeah, thank you.
So you're saying it can't be attached to the pet one, because I did see literature about that.
It can be attached, but it's also an amendment, and amendments have to by statute, huh?
You'll have to use the mic there.
What if it's just a modification of the animal?
That's an
ordinance?
amendment. Any amendment must go through the proper procedures per Act 110, adopted by this board years ago.
Right,
Yeah.
then we could amend it just at the board meeting. We wouldn't have.
Correct, but amendments under state statute must follow the same processes, which include public hearings, notification, and otherwise for zoning. And now that I know through the County Board of Commissioners that it has to go under review by the County Board of Commissioners for any zoning and amendments, new ordinances, or changes under state statute.
What if we repealed the old one and started over? Same?
Once again, you're talking zoning, and you still have to go through the same process. You're better off to do an amendment, and you obviously can check with legal, but I've already conferred with County Board of Commissioners that although a formality, any zoning changes, amendments, or new ordinances must go under review under state statute.
Okay, well, there's your input. You guys, if you can come up with something. Me personally, I certainly don't have a problem with it. Okay, is there any other public comment? Okay. We will close the public comment and get into the budget.
I would like to make a motion that we adjourn for 5 minutes for bathroom duties.
You go right ahead, don't get lost. We would be back in 5 minutes, which is gonna be about, 33 to, 33.
Yep.
You go right ahead. Okay, everybody back who's gonna hang around, I take it. So today is the first of our budget meetings. The budget was passed out to the board members, and everybody should have had a chance to look at it enough to go, oh my God. Suffice it to say that we got some advice that turned out to be not so great, and we're a little behind the 8 ball, but we're gonna catch up. So on this document for the board members, the big one, everything on the left-hand side is broken down page after page by department number. Everything is highlighted in either pink or yellow as far as over budget or under budget. Or yellow being 60% or lower, and pink being over 100% used. Part of the difficulty in understanding this has got to do with that all of our revenues are not back in. We're right in the middle of tax season. So some things that show as being over may in fact not be over, where it's gonna take a little work. I went through it and based on Jeanette's work on figuring out what was over and under, the way we're gonna approach it today anyway is to go over all of the categories that seem to be doing fine, and that in the next 6 weeks of the end of the fiscal year, or 7, whatever it is, that we will probably not exceed that. In those cases, we're probably gonna just propose that the same amount of money goes into this year's budget as was in last year's, because it worked pretty well. So, not that you can find them easily, but if you look in that bigger packet where everything is color-coded, I'm gonna go through the things that I found that looks like we don't really have any problem. And it is also in the packet I gave you if you wanna look later to actually find these things. But something to understand is there is a non-departmental, which means it's not specific to a department in the budget. And I already said that all of the estimates don't include the annual expenditures that might come yet in February and March, nor the revenue that comes in. So they are not in a particular set order. I went through it where I left the problem areas till last. So starting right in the bottom of this first page, the category would have been is 170 and 172, that's supervisor control. So in this bigger packet, there's more material and detail about it. But the bottom line is only 78% of the budget was used, and we're only about 6 or 7 weeks out from the end. I'm gonna make a wild assumption that we're gonna be all right on that one. The next one is 173 was the maintenance department. Only 38% of the budget was used. Again, the assumption would be reasonable that we're not gonna run into trouble on that in the next 6 weeks. And that the original allocation, we could look at reducing it. We could also look at the premise that none of these budgets are ever done without the concept that you can amend it as many times as you want. The bottom line is you need to get it out the door by March 31st, and it needs to be available for the public to view well before that. So in this case, there's an excess, quite a bit. We may look at doing something different, but we're at least okay there. Next one, 191 is the accounting department under the clerk, 87% of the budget used. So that's an example of something that we're close, but it's probably right on track, unless more revenue comes in that we don't know about. Next that I had found was 247 for the Board of Review. Only 31% of the budget was used. 253 for the treasurer, 61% of the budget used. 257 for the treasurer, which included the assessor and equalization. 83% of the budget used. Again, you're getting close, but at this time of year, that might even be spot on for the total in the year. Elections, 57% of the budget used. That was 262. 303 is the ordinance enforcement control, 58% of the budget used. 536, waste and or sewer, and I did not write down the amount, but that was 0% used, and I saw so many of these numbers in my head. I don't know if there was no money there to begin with, or whatever was put in the budget for 24, 25 is just still sitting there. I can't remember right offhand. 721 was planning at 27% of the budget used. 722 zoning at 76%. 806 is zoning board of appeals at 16%. Now on the bottom of that was transfers in and out or other uses, and it was shown 0. I am not completely aware of what that is. Part of this is we have some help coming, hopefully, from the 2 different CPAs who may be able to help us to get into the fine details and figure out the final weeks of revenue, the revenue that we may have already got that is not showing up in the BS&A tracking, and to nail down what some of the final numbers are. So if I've got total revenue, total expenditure, I really don't know. There's a number there. I don't know that it's accurate. But it did say, or appeared to be saying, that 86% of the budget was used. That's pretty much right on track. 862 is employee share of Social Security Medicare, 88% of the budget used. That is probably not enough to move forward. So there's a couple of little, not asterisks, but a couple of plus signs there that we need to maybe add something. 265 was Township Hall Control. We're 150%, 153. We are way over on that. So something definitely went wrong there, possibly in that Social Security Medicare. The rest of all of that did not seem to be too bad. I will ask you if you got any questions, but a lot of it you can look in that bigger packet and figure out yourselves. If you got something to ask about that or how I got here and where I'm going, go ahead, and then we'll get into some more of it. Okay, I'm gonna keep going then. Oh, you got some.
862, where it's the employee Social Security Medicare.
That's what it says on the big packet, yeah, when you get to that part.
So what does that one entail? I didn't see that one on the other packet.
It is in there under the non-departmental expenditures. There's a lot of stuff. You look at that thing and then go back and look again, and it's like, I didn't see that.
Most
first.
of it, there's a lot of redundancy on that.
Yeah, there is, and it is confusing, and it is partially because you're talking about matching that BSNA program that runs all of this stuff. It's confusing. And this is our first meeting. I'm just throwing this out there that these are areas, a problem area jumped up and some areas that we probably don't have to do much about. Getting into the road fund, this is where things start getting a little bit different. We need to get the road commission representative to come in and review this with us. When we, at the end of this, set dates for our future meetings, then it will become, we need the road commissioner or a road commission representative here. We need a building inspector representative here. We need the fire chief here at different times, and we will have to try and arrange how to match our meetings so that they can be here to give us better explanations on some of the ways that the money was used and where their intentions are in going forward. So in the road fund, the road expense was 73% of its use. I would consider, all things being equal, that's not real bad. In the road fund, 203, 94%, I suspect that's spot on. Maybe there's a little bit left they have to do. Again, in the total revenues and the total expenditures, I cannot give you an accurate number. I don't see how all of the revenues and the expenditures not having been included can give you an accurate number at this time. So for the road fund, we do need the road commissioner. Dave is the guy who I've talked to the most. I don't see it as a big problem. He just needs to be here when we try and finalize how much money we would move over into the next year. What you need, sir?
You.
Don't need anything.
Oh, I thought you called me a bad name, you just whispered it to him. Okay, gonna move on. Remember, this is our first meeting. As you stare at this thing long enough, it'll start making some sense, and then we need some help on some final tweaks to what we're going with. Fire department and the ambulance service. I'm gonna make a suggestion here, and next week you guys can come back with what you think. I believe that we need to keep it going at whatever rate they were previously at, needed, and with for the fire chief and the assistance of him. We're gonna need his help to do this. But there's many things that need review, and we can't take action on them until he's here sitting in front of us. A lot of it doesn't make sense. It's a massive budget. And the fire department and ambulance service is different from the fire equipment fund. And they are both huge. We had already had conversations about that we wanted, again, I do not understand how the fire department didn't ask for grant money, nor this township. We need to move in that direction. When you're talking about grants, you need to have money available in a matching fund. Because if you get a grant for $12,000 that's in a matching fund, you gotta have $12,000 set aside to do that. In Garish, they were initially recommended they had at least 20, I think. But we need to think about these things before we can actually move forward with finalizing the fire department budget. Also, we're certainly looking at a recruiting allocation, the money that would be needed for that. We're looking at recruiting. The fire truck funding, I don't think that is settled yet on which check went where, or if that is settled. One good thing about, who was it? Fred Cooper seriously knows about this stuff as far as being a retired fire chief and doing the budgets. Almost to the point where if we bring him on and he is around, might even want to bring him into that meeting when we have JC here. So I'm gonna make a recommendation that we do not move on that at all until we talk to JC. And the second part of that is we may have to approve whatever it was before, if that worked. When you approve it on the 31st, you can amend it later, except that there are millages involved here, and that throws a monkey wrench in there. We need a little bit of time to do the things that we wanna do with the fire department. So I'm gonna suggest, and we certainly can have more discussion, that we just kind of move that thing along for another couple of months. If we can get away with doing that, it's not a matter of getting away. If it can legally be done, and then be talking about manipulating budget money in the fire department that has to do with a millage. Not sure about that yet. But that's my suggestion for now. In the Cemetery Parks and Rec Fund, there's 3 different numbers there. 751, and I don't even know how this could have happened, but it did. 751 is Parks and Rec, non-departmental. Somehow, they used almost 100% of the budget already. What happened? I haven't got a clue. I know we put a lot of money into chips and stuff for the park, but that was ARPA money. I don't know what happened there, but we certainly need to look a little harder at it. The 276 on the cemetery, that was at 55%. We're probably okay there, within the concept of if we allocate the same amount of money and move forward, we should not run into a huge problem. 751 Parks and Rec that was within the department, 33% of the budget was used, so that looked good. Again, the revenues and expenditures, what was shown on that paper at that point in time, were 104% of the budget used, so we're already over. Again, what money is still owed? What money have we spent that is not recorded yet? The building department fund, non-departmental, was at 89% of the budget used. Mechanical permits, and again, we need Robert Moore to come in and talk with us about this. Mechanical permits were at 103%. I'm not sure how you give a permit for somebody and go over in a budget. I'm not sure how that even works. Admin fee at 149%. Interest and dividends at 233%. All of those are over budget. Until Robert comes in here and we can go over some of this with him, I could not even venture to guess why that is on paper, and maybe there are expenditure or revenues coming in that are going to drop all this down. I don't know. The building inspector department, 94% of the budget used. Revenue and expenditures show that 49% of the budget was used. So there's rudimentary information, and Robert will have to come in, and again, we will set meeting dates, and we will get people in, and we will get way more into the details of this stuff. The second fire is fire equipment fund, that's 406. Similar to the fire department and ambulance service, though this fund appears to be at about 96% budget used, many things aren't clear. Maybe there is still money coming in. We will need JC here. I will say this now, Fred Cooper was interested in what we were doing with our ambulance service because he was instrumental in revamping the ambulance service. Sterling Heights, I believe, is where he came from. You're talking, their major source of income was ambulance runs. And he knows a lot about it. It's something we're going to have to consider, that if you look at spending money on recruiting to have more ambulance runs, and ambulance runs make you a lot of money, maybe we need to think about that again, and he's a good guy to talk to about how to do that. Trash fund, non-departmental, says 100% of the budget used. We sat there and talked with the CPA, who said that was we were fine. I don't know if that 100% used is misleading because not all the revenue is recorded. I would guess maybe. You see this stuff, Kevin, more than I do on a somewhat regular basis. The trash expenses, 528, 83% of the budget was used. At one point, talking to the other CPA, we were looking at being $25,000, $30,000 up in that stuff. We're going to need some help determining what the final numbers will be. But I think we're good, according to the previous CPA, we were sitting all right there. Tax collection fund, the non-departmental, we appear to be right at 100% of the budget used. And I believe the treasurer's office is working on the final numbers estimate right now because you're still gathering revenue daily.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, especially right now. So, impressed payroll fund. Not real sure what that was, but the total amount of money was less than $100. So instead of trying to figure out what it was, I kind of said, that's all right. If it's not more than $100, we'll figure out what to do with it. Camp Cornelia, oh my Lord. This is a special assessment district. There's a lot going on because it's a special assessment district. And Brian Cook, who was here, we're gonna need to get him involved and figure out what's going on. We had previously thought we had discovered, and Brian had brought up that I think in 2 years, there's $100,000 owed that's possibly Lyon Township's responsibility because of the allowance of people to pay off their whole bill without paying it over a 10-year period with the interest. There's another bond, Oak Heights bond. Kevin, was that for a road?
Yeah, that's for a road, and it's due, I think, in May, and it's done. And I think we'll $20,500.
Was that money that came
It
from
was-
somewhere allocated for it?
It was like an assessment for the people in that area.
So we didn't drop 20, it was kind of already there for this?
Yes, yep. It was a bond.
Okay, so all of that leads to the total revenue and expenditure for all funds, says we've used 1,521% of our budget. Well, that's not possible. Again, we're looking at the fact that we do not have all of the revenue collected and marked and added to these numbers. With the additional revenue coming in, the CPA we did talk to thought that we had about, don't quote me on this, but I thought he said somewhere around $200,000 in our general fund, and we were sitting pretty good. So that was my preliminary exploring into this. We have a call out to another CPA to see if they can come in and give us some more direction. Possibly another one. I have 2 phone calls with other treasurers who may be able to help. Bottom line is, in order to figure it out, typically other townships will help if they have time. In order to move forward, we need to set the meeting dates where we can have the different department heads here and get more information. Does anybody have any questions before we get into the meeting dates? Any questions about all of that? And again, it's only my interpretation of the numbers, trying to get the easy stuff out of the way. And also some of this stuff with the fire department fund. My suggestion is that we allocate about the same amount of money if that worked, but we have many things to look at with the fire department, including if it's a millage, can we even do anything with it different? Anybody got any comments about all of that?
Yes, I do. Just as a point of reference, looking through this, and I've looked through this before, and some of the things didn't make sense to me, maybe you ladies as well. Under the Cemetery Parks and Recs Fund, non-departmental, like let's say, for example, it's highlighted pink, the cemetery lot sales. It says the amended budget for 24-25 was $3,500, expected to be $5,765. Wouldn't that be lots sold? And if it's over budget, then it says percentage of budget used is 164%, but it's to the good, to the positive, in parentheses, $2,265. So doesn't that mean that that percentage helps offset any of the other expenditures? Interest and dividend, is that interest and dividend expected to pay or interest and dividend we collect? And
Are you asking me?
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, and this says over budget by
I asked Courtney.
271%, and I'm like, but is that?
These are all great questions.
Okay.
Well, yes, like,
Yeah.
again, what it looks like we can do, what we can talk to department heads and dive into deeper. Again, we're in this position because we may have followed some poor advice. Is there any other comments on what we went through so far? Okay, well, that means that you now have in your hands anything that I've thought about it and the complete budget. Again, the estimates at the end of the year do not include the fact that there's 6 more weeks to go in the fiscal year. But again, we could make a pretty good estimate. If we're sitting all right in a fund, we're probably gonna be okay. But obviously, some meeting dates are in order. Next week on the 19th is our board meeting at 7 o'clock. I'm gonna make a suggestion that by the 19th, I should have some communication with one of the CPA, at least one of the CPAs, Roscommon County Road Commission, Robert. I've already talked to Robert about this. We just need to get tentative dates out in pencil to these people, and then if it's not gonna work for them, we can do something different. But for the CPA, the Road Commission, Robert, and the fire budget, as far as JC, I want to suggest that we schedule about a 4-hour block on the 19th prior to our 7 o'clock board meeting and see how many of these people we can get in on that day. Who has a massive conflict with the 19th, let's say at noon, 1 o'clock? Certainly variable on our end, but I'm assuming most of these people are working somewhat of a 9-to-5 job. As far as trying to get them in here and talk with us as we're going over the budget. Anybody got a conflict with the 19th?
I have a meeting Wednesday morning, but I could probably be here by 1 o'clock.
I would think one would work if we could set it up with the rest of the people. I don't see why not. Any other comments on the time for Wednesday? And I'm looking at a serious sit down and get after it. Okay, if we go with 1 o'clock, I can certainly check on the other people. This does, actually, I'm not sure. We would need to post this as a public meeting, unless the possibility may be that if a CPA is willing to come in here, and we can set up some version of them helping us on a training on 1,000-foot level on what's going on with these total numbers and the revenues. It would not be an open meeting act for us to have a person come in and train us, as long as we're not asking specific questions about this stuff. That might be a possibility, I don't know, but if that happens, we wouldn't have to post it. It would be a training. So actually, we would not have to post that we would have a 1 o'clock meeting until, what is the date on Friday? This Friday?
Is your plan to bring in those department heads that day too, or just the CPA?
As many, it depends on who is available, who says they can do it that day, and how we can arrange it.
Well, then I think you would have to have it as a public if you're gonna have those department heads here.
Right, but if it's not, what is the date for Friday? What's today here? 12th, 13th, 14th? By Friday, I would know, I think. And then if we have to post it as a public meeting because we're gonna do it that way, I think we can post it Friday. If it turns out that a CPA is willing to come in here and do a training that day, we wouldn't have to post that. So I think we have till Friday to determine which way that would go. And it's juggling balls. Got to figure out who can be when, where, and do what. But for sure, that evening then is a board meeting. If we do something on the budget previous to that day, we will not have to do it in the board meeting. We can discuss it, but it won't be like we're sitting there nailing down facts. I kind of like that idea. I'd like to keep that right out of the board meeting and do it earlier in the day. Okay, so if the 19th will work somewhere around 1 o'clock, let me see what I can arrange with these other people that would be involved. The 24th is a possible alternative date, and we have to keep it in mind that that is, where am I at? February. We are in a position where we have to try and get a certain amount of this done. There's two concepts here. One is that you make your product available to the general public for 30 days, and at the end of 30 days, you're going to have a public hearing. Another concept is you don't really need to do the 30 days. Until I can get an absolute answer on that, I'm going to assume we have to deal with this 30-day time period. If you're trying to, again, it has to be done by the 31st. The 24th is a possible alternate. I'm just throwing that out there for you guys. I know Timothy is working, but it's possible if we did something in the evening of the 24th, just whether that's even a feasibility to consider or not. So let me know what you guys think you got going on the evening of the 24th. Not to set that date, but in juggling all of this stuff, then it may turn around that that's a good time for something. And it's Kevin's favorite thing, do a meeting.
Well,
How about you, Steve? Do you know if you got anything you working that day, or?
I have a jury trial the 24th, and no telling how long that could go. But I
Right.
may show up in uniform.
That's great, great. Mr. Monet, where are you at on the evening?
Good after 5.
Okay, so just in keeping it like, this is a possibility in case everything else is not working out well. And again, in the concept of the 30 days. At the point we do that, we need to kind of have a general idea of what we have for the budget. And as far as posting it for 30 days, in the Holton Lake Resort, it would actually have to be, have to be done by Tuesday on the 25th with our basic premise of a product for a budget. That's a push. I don't think we're gonna get there. But that would put us in the 30-day review period. If it's any longer than that, we're not gonna be doing the 30 days, so I don't know, I'm pretty sure we don't have to, but we do have to arrange for it to end up in the paper at some point. The 26th of, where are we at here? Yeah, the 26th of February is a Wednesday. Right now, that would be a target date for us to post as a public hearing. And it is a Wednesday. I do not think there's no board meeting that day, but it is a Wednesday, which helps a little bit. If we were to post it ahead of time, at least a week ahead of time, that would be a public hearing for our final product to go to them and them have suggestions. So two things could happen. We could have a public hearing and then we could pass it. The advice is don't do that because the public has great ideas and somebody might suggest something that's a great idea. So you wouldn't necessarily want to pass it at the same day of the meeting. At the same time, it needs to be done by the 31st. So the 26th is probably the latest we could consider having that public hearing, is the latest. And it still leaves a day or two after where if we were gonna do something as a last minute change that made a lot of sense. Okay, Monday being the 31st, there's not a lot of room left to maneuver in there. So let me back up on the 19th. If we do something for 4 hours, let's see who I can get in here. The 24th is certainly an alternate, and probably we're going to have to do it anyway. At that point, we're looking at we need to make decisions fast and have kind of a finished product that we can then make available to the public. And the 26th is the latest we can do a public hearing, and that needs to be posted at least 7 days ahead. So if you're playing with the newspaper posting, you got to allow for Tuesday. They say 4 o'clock. We would have to get it to them by then, or then we're screwed on, the fact that it's public for a week. Final product can be available here in a binder for any person to come in and look at. So, how about some comments? That laying it out that way with some juggling in the beginning, that'll work. Laying it out that way with some premise that we are not gonna make a lot of changes within the fire department. And whatever other department we were looking at that is very, was complicated, Camp Cornelia, that we just need to get the information on where we're going there.
Is your target date for public hearing 2/26, February 26th?
Sorry?
Your target date for your.
No, I'm sorry if I said that, it would actually be March 26th, and that's if you're talking about trying to give 30 days in between the 24th of this month.
Well, you didn't say any month, you just kept saying 26.
Okay, thank you for keeping me straight here. No, March 31st being the deadline, the public hearing on the 26th, that would be the last possible day we could probably do it. But this is all under the assumption that if we are under a mandate to have a 30-day notice and a 30-day period for the public to review, then that's the way we gotta do it. If it turns out we don't have to do that, we got a little bit more leeway, a lot more leeway. This is almost like a worst-case scenario to make sure that we make the mandate if the mandate is 30 days.
Good question, because ironically, the
Quick one, use your mic so it gets on there. Yeah, use your mic there, you got a good point. Just so he gets it and they get it.
I just said good point because the 26th is ironically both fall on a Wednesday for March and February, so thank you for the clarification.
Okay, all right, so that's a lot. This is, of all the things we do, this is a major thing we do. So if we're not willing to put some time and effort into this thing, that's on us. So any other comments on all of that or other suggestions? Again, that is a way that it would work, and there are certainly variables going along. Anybody else has anything to throw in there? If not, I think we would be to a position where I think I left anything out that time. Would be in a second period of public comment. If anybody out here has a comment to make, come right on up and make it. Thank you for that. Yes, there's at the bottom of this is a thing I didn't delete, and it has nothing to do with what I gave you. What does it say on there? Yeah, it was something to do, I better go over that so you all know. In the packet I gave you, under public comments, it says announcements. That's actually a carryover for a meeting we did a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't delete it. So that actually has nothing to do with it, other than after public comment, we'll get to where the motion to adjourn comes in. So is there any public comment for today? Come right on up, sir.
John Davis, Lyon Township. That's a lot of stuff that you just went over. Is that something that copy that you were reading off of that I could have? Or we, or anybody that wants it?
As far as I know, the copy that you would get is the one that we turn out after we do a lot of this work. That would be 2 more meetings somewhere around the 26th. Because the thing that, not that I couldn't give it to you, but it is very hard, without all the revenue and the expenditure in there, it really doesn't, it's not indicative of a final number.
Yeah, but it was very confusing and you go through it fast and I get it.
Yeah, it is.
I would like a copy of it.
Sure, I think you probably, you could have one and have at it. That's,
No, thank you.
if you ask Jeanette, or Courtney, nicely. They can probably get you one maybe even before you leave today. We'll see.
I'll ask them both.
Yeah, have fun in there. It's quite a show when you get in there.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments for today? Okay, I believe that we covered what we needed to cover to start the budget. We are in a position to look to bring people on to the various boards, get more information from them, get information from department heads, times they can be here, and a strong dose of some advice as to how it might shake out in the end to juggle the numbers on expenditures and revenue. So at this point, I would certainly entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion to adjourn carries. The time of adjournment is, sorry, thank you.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for keeping me on protocol. And our time is 2:17. Okay, thank you for coming. We are officially adjourned.